Here we go.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is
not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time.
I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Did you think no one was watching?
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Your mission.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
To reclaim the American dream.
To be given the right of human beings to be afforded equal rights and equal opportunities.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show. If you're hearing his voice, you're hearing the voice of reason.
You certainly come to the right place. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's Monday, June 8th, 2015, and you've joined us for the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. McKinney, Texas. That's where we have to start. Today's show, we had the show completely outlined to deal with LGBT refugees from Uganda, and they are living in Long Beach, California now because of policies, anti-gay policies in the Uganda. And we have an entire segment on that. Particularly the point of interest for me is the involvement of American evangelicals who got anti-gay legislation. Not just anti-gay legislation, but legislation that could lead to their execution. So Christians in America contributed to the conditions in the Uganda that could lead to the execution of people because of their sexual orientation. Now, we had the entire show outlined for that, and I'm going to do my best to put that inside of the show. But we have to deal with the news coming out of McKinney, Texas, which is well, by now, I mean, if you haven't seen the video by now, I don't know what rock you're living under. It's kind of ubiquitous at this point. It's everywhere. And in the video, you see a police officer running to the scene. And the first thing you see, when I first saw this video, I quite honestly thought that it was a parody. I thought that someone had put together this really large parody of because it seems so fake. It genuinely seemed fake because you have this police officer who's running as if he's going into a battle zone, right? And teenage kids in swimming suits. So it's already absurd. You have a police officer who's running into a pool party as though he's running into the war scene. And then the very first thing you see this guy does, he does a barrel roll. I mean, he turns a flip like something out of Call of Duty. All right. So when I first saw it, I'm like, okay, this is somebody put this together. And then it got worse in terms of the absurdity, right? You look at the video and you're like, this can't be real. My gut reaction was this is fake because he skips over every single white person in the video and goes and finds every single black person possible, right? So the absurdity of it made me feel the first couple of seconds, I was like, okay, this is fake. Who put this together? But then I saw the reactions of the first two young black men that he pulled down and set down on saying that he set them down is too nice because that's not what he did. He forced them down on the ground and the kids were like, what do? We just got here. At that point, I realized, oh, this guy has lost his mind. This guy is genuinely not working and firing on all cylinders. I mean, he comes into the scene and he does a barrel roll and he skips over every person that was not a person of color and went directly for the black people. Now, you've seen the video. And always, no matter what, in this type of scenario, you will always have people who try to justify this by any means. There's no way that in the minds of certain people, there's no way that a cop can do something wrong with regard to black people. And people wonder why I deal with racism and race issues so much. Somebody actually actually asked me that question. Why do you deal with race issues so much? I have no choice but to deal with it. If you saw this video and you cannot see the direct racial profiling, I'm going to put it nicely, racial profiling. If you cannot see the racial profiling that insane cop, that video was the archetype example of the hyper militarization of our police and racial profiling and that intersection. You see this guy come charging in like he missed his calling to work for Call of Duty, right? He wanted to be on Call of Duty when he grew up, so he missed that calling. He couldn't program games, and he couldn't make it into the military. So the first thing he does in this scene was he does a barrel roll. So he has this uber aggressive mentality already, and then the next thing he does goes directly into racial profiling, stopping every black person. Now, that's just this video. There are other videos. There's another video that shows the incident of how this all began, and we'll unpack that. And then there's another video of a young girl who did an interview on yesterday, the girl who was involved in the fight that led to the police officers being called in the first place. But I want to deal first with that video. And this police officer who, how could you not see? You know, that's what blows me away. Blows me away is that people who actually think that they're rational, people who actually think that they are reasonable, can look at that video and the very first thing that they try to do is justify it, to say that these kids did something, these 14-year-old kids in swimsuits, right, did something wrong to earn their own personal treatment by the personal police brutality. That's what people are going over and above to do. Now, I want you to join the conversation. You could dial in 857-600-0518. I don't want to just give you my opinion. I want to hear you guys, because there's a lot to be said about this. There's a lot going on, but it's disingenuous at best for people to look at this video and try to find a way to justify how that police officer treated that young girl. What threat did all she did was talk back to the police officer. And if that is what happens when people talk back, then there's a problem with our policing structure altogether. You cannot tell me it is not acceptable for a grown man to throw a young girl, I don't care what ethnicity or what race she is, I don't care where she came from, it is not acceptable for a grown 200-pound plus man to throw a little girl, 14-year-old girl in a bikini around like a rag doll and put his full force of his body on her back because she talked back. But you have people in social media land and the blogosphere and in conservative media running around saying that she shouldn't have talked back. I want you guys for 1 minute to juxtapose what happened in McKinney, Texas, to what happened in Waco, Texas, the same exact state. We're not going across the country, the same exact state. Here you have almost 140 plus biker gang members who just got done with a shootout, killing 9 people in broad daylight. And when you see the images from the arrest of these men, you don't see any police officers with their knees in the backs or in their heads or throwing people around or forcing them on the ground. They let them stand up. They were checking text messages. They were on their phones. They were sitting on the back back of trucks as if they were getting ready to tailgate. But let a couple of teenagers show up to a pool party, black teenagers show up to a pool party, and the damn police lose their mind, come charging in like they're charging the beaches, storming the beaches of Normandy, doing barrel rolls, pulls out his gun, and then at the end of the video, he decides to throw around this girl like a rag doll. I think it's absurd. I think anyone who tries to justify this video, it's less than a human being. In my personal opinion, I think they have some deep-seated issues, and they try to find enemy. And here's the thing. For everyone who tried to say that these black kids should not have been there, I'm going to pull up this video, and I'm going to play the audio for the radio listeners. I'm going to play this audio of the interview with the girl who lives in the neighborhood. She was having a cookout for her friends. Her friends showed up to her house in her neighborhood, and they decide to go to the pool. And apparently It was too many black people for some of the white people there. Because why? Because, and I'll let her say it in her own words. I'm still trying to filibuster here so I can get this video up. But in her own words, she said that two white women, and you've seen the video. If you have not, I will put it on my website. White women came to her and her friends, she and her friends, and told them to go back to their Section 8 housing. They don't belong there. Right. So race has absolutely nothing to do with that. Calling them the B words. And then to make matters worse, not only did they verbally harass them, one of the women, grown adult women, slapped this young girl. And of course, when you slap somebody, a fight will ensue. I don't know why people are surprised. Why are people surprised that when a black person gets slapped, that a fight might just actually ensue? I don't get that. But that's how this entire incident started. That's how this entire incident started. And then the police were called because of this confrontation. But the police don't come to get to the bottom of the confrontation. The police come to get every single black person that they saw. And how do you, now, if you think I'm playing the race card, which some of you obviously will, how can you look at that video and see the police officer skip over every single white person and go and grab every single person of color? And it wasn't just black people. There was a Mexican kid and an Arab kid that got pulled and got set down. So every person of color, the police officer went after every person with pigmentation in their skin, you know what I mean, and throws them down. So how am I playing the race card? By calling out the obvious, calling out what is visible, calling out what is evident without question. But I'm playing the race card. Let people tell it. All right, I'm pulling up this interview because I want you to listen to this girl in her own words. And this video is provided by E. Johnson Photo. I don't have that's his YouTube handle. I didn't get his real name, but he went out and he pulled up, he interviewed the girl that was in the fight that caused the police to be called in the.
Yeah, so basically what happened was me and my sister and a few friends made a cookout, and I basically, to sum it up, when I went to go get my key pass from someone, this lady was saying racial slurs to some friends that came to the cookout.
What kind of slurs was she saying? She
was saying things such as black effort, and that's why you live in Section 8 homes. There's also a male that was saying rude things, and this 14-year-old girl named Grace, which is my brother's friend, stuck up for us, saying that's not right, you shouldn't do that, that's racist, and things like that. So then they started verbally abusing her, saying that she needs to do better for herself, be better for herself, cursing at her. And I'm saying, no, that's wrong. She's 14. You should not say things like that to a 14-year-old. And they're like, well, you need to go back where you're from and things like that, telling me I need to go back to my Section 8 home and stuff like that. So I said, excuse me. And then the other lady, her name's Kate, came up to me and she smacked me in my face. She actually,
that was Kate, white, black.
Kate's Caucasian,
okay.
And she went and she hit me in my face, and that's when both of the women attacked me.
Okay, and just for clarity, you live in this neighborhood?
Yes, I live in Craig Ranch.
All right, most of the people that attended the event also live in Craig Ranch, is that right? Okay.
Most of the people that attended the event lived in the neighborhood. Now you have this entire false narrative going around the web, which that's the internet. That's what happens, right? But they try to make it seem like all of these kids came from urban areas, right? As if urban, we don't know what urban translates to so many Americans. They try to make it seem like these kids were coming and crashing a party. They were trying to break their way in. They were smoking weed, all of these things. Now, if any of that was true, let's start with the illegal drugs that everyone online is saying that they were doing. Do you realize that there was one person out of all the people that this super trooper cop assaulted, only one person was arrested, and he was arrested for interfering with police activity because he was upset with how they were treating his cousin. That's the only person that was arrested. So for everyone that said that they were underage drinking, everyone that says that they were smoking marijuana, no one was arrested. And I guarantee you that if they had anything on them, that police officer would have arrested them. So throw that theory out the door. Then the second thing they said was these kids were trespassing. This girl, Tatiana, lives in that neighborhood. Matter of fact, when you see the video, you can see it's on the same exact street that the Super Trooper did his barrel roll on. So she lives in the neighborhood. She's out there right now. This was done yesterday. So it's not like they went to the scene to take a video. She lives in the neighborhood. She was having a cookout and they decided to go to the pool. And when they got to the pool, they were greeted by some people who obviously didn't think that black folks could live in that neighborhood. See, and then the police, here's the most disgusting thing about this is the fact that these two women created a conference. I talk about this all the time, and I'm going to repeat it until it hits home. These two women started a confrontation because of their prejudices, thinking that these black people either should not live there, or if they did, they only lived there by virtue of Section 8. And they tried to give these girls a lecture. And when that girl said, "Excuse me, hold up," they physically assaulted her. Those two women need to be arrested. But here, they create a confrontation. It doesn't stop there. And then the police get called to their rescue. The police don't get called to settle, to find out what happened, to keep the peace. They came expressly and targeted the black kids in that neighborhood. Every black person that he saw, he made them sit down. And then he assaulted the girl, the 14-year-old girl who had the nerve to talk back. That is the paradigm under which a lot of African Americans, if not most, if not all of us, live under. And that is what is frustrating to me. All right, folks, I see that we have some comments. Someone just hit me up and let me know we have some comments in the Google Hangout. You could join us there. You can dial in 857-600-0518. I'm going to go to a quick break so I can figure out exactly how I'm going to do these comments without crashing, without leaving this window. So we'll get that taken care of. But I want you to call in 857-600-0518. This is the Benjamin Dixon Show. We'll be back right after this break.
When you're ready to lose weight, why count, track, and worry over every meal? Jenny Craig makes it simple. Just walk into a neighborhood Jenny Craig center or give us a call. You'll meet your dedicated personal consultant who helps you reach your goals. Together, you'll pick out delicious Jenny Craig foods that you'll love and design a menu that fits your life. And the best part is that you can get started losing weight right away. Don't wait any longer to take advantage of our best offer ever. Call 1-800-JENNY20 or visit jennycraig.com.
This is the sound of salmonella gyrating on your undercooked chicken. And it looks like Mom might be taking it out a little early. Don't let salmonella get funky with your chicken. On average, 1 in 6 Americans will get a foodborne illness this year. So use a thermometer to cook each type of meat to the right temperature. Keep your family safe at foodsafety.gov. Brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
On the next episode of Recipes for Disaster.
I'm making beef sliders for my friend Sammy. Nana taught me to always pull meat off the grill early so it's extra juicy.
Use a food thermometer to ensure ground beef is 160 degrees, or you could make people really sick. Sandy didn't think twice about the slider she ate until yoga class, when a nasty case of food poisoning turned her downward-facing dog into upward-moving lunch. Watch Recipes for Disaster at foodsafety.gov and learn the steps Maria unwittingly leaves out. Brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans. When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer. Warm fleece on a cold day. I want to be a bike that races around the country. I want to be a bench on a forest trail. When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. Brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Benjamin Dixon Show. If you're hearing his voice, you're hearing the voice of reason.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so a comment in our Google Hangout said that that the police officer didn't do a barrel roll. Well, he did a barrel roll, but it was by virtue of his tripping. Now, I did not see him trip. I watched that video at least 20 times and I did not see him trip. Obviously, I didn't see his feet. But let's just give him credit that he tripped. He only tripped because he charged in like a bat out of hell, as though he was running and storming the beaches of Normandy, which is apropos because that's the weekend we just passed through, right? This guy came in. Who goes into what? You know what we need to do? Someone please find us the 911 call. What was said by the neighbors? Because unless they said these kids have guns, which they did not, but what other excuse does this guy have for charging in as if he was the cavalry? None whatsoever. And so if he had to do a barrel roll by virtue of him tripping, then it still is indicative of his mindset of him being a super trooper. Have you guys seen that movie, Super Trooper? I mean, this guy, he fits the bill 110%. This is exactly the mindset that he charged in. I want to hear the 911 call. And also I want someone to explain to me, help me out. Why is it that the police departments do nothing until social media does something? There was no interview. There was no press conference. There was no administrative leave. There was nothing done. This police officer would have gotten off completely scot-free had social media not stood up and did something. Matter of fact, this police officer was proud of his exploits. He placed the video on his YouTube channel underneath police training. Now, he has subsequently deleted all of his social media presence, but before the crap hit the fan, before all hell broke loose, he put this video up on his personal YouTube page and cataloged it as police training, which shows you that he was proud. He was proud of his barrel roll. He was proud of how he wrangled all of the juveniles. He was proud of his racial profiling. He saw absolutely nothing wrong with the fact that he charged in and made assumptions that could have been deadly, that led to physical altercations. And now here's the other thing. The girl, I'm going to go on a tangent here. The girl that he slammed to the ground by the hair, by her shoulders, by her arm, and put his weight onto, he later released her. He did all of that to her, not because she committed a crime, but because she had the nerve to talk back. Because, no, God forbid a teenager ever challenge authority, right? That's something, that's just something that you don't do. Teenagers don't ever challenge authority. But they do. They always have. That is a part of growing up. Kids will challenge authority, especially if that authority is not legitimately carrying out its duties. A kid will question you. A kid will question you when you are doing something that is not correct. And for everyone that says, oh, they should have just kept their mouth shut, I want to see, you know what, maybe you're at the stage, where you just let the police and your boss and everyone else that has authority over you, you just let them do whatever the hell they want to you, right? You should be as bold as these kids to question authority. They have the right to question, everyone has the right to understand why the police are detaining them. And if the police don't have a legitimate reason to detain them, everyone has a right to walk away. But this police officer, he created the situation. He escalated the situation. Those two women who didn't want the kids at the pool, they created the situation. But this police officer escalated the situation and had it. First of all, you had on multiple levels. He was disrespecting them because they were young. First of all, I've seen police officers do it. We've seen plenty of videos. The police officers think that these kids have to obey. Even more so, they would treat a child like they would not treat an adult because they're cowards. First of all, a lot of them are cowards. They're not going to talk to adults like that. And so they unleash all of their pent up tension on children that should obey them. You see this in the classroom. This is why teachers get in trouble. This is why parents get in trouble, and they abuse their children because they expect a child to just do anything and everything that they say. And if you question their authority, then you're going to get pinned down and 200 pounds put in your back. That's the first level. Then second of all, because he specifically targeted black people or people of color, there was a level of disrespect that he had because of their skin color. He saw them, first of all, as criminals, every single one of them, and he passed up. And these are not my words. Let me give credit to I can never remember this kid's name. Brandon Brooks, I believe is his name. Brandon Brooks, who did the video, who filmed the video. He said it himself. The police officers came in and went right past him as if he was invisible and went after the brown people, the Mexican people, the Arab, and the black people. This is a kid from the scene, the guy who did the video. So don't take my word for it. You know, listen to the kid who was there. So when I say this police officer targeted people of color, that's exactly what the damn video shows. Why is that such an offensive thing? Why is that such, people like, oh, you know, you're just playing the race card? No, that's what the video shows. He charged past every white person in the video, and without any information about what actually happened, which we still need to get the 911 call to see what information he was operating based on. Without any knowledge of the situation, he went after the people of color in the video. It simply is what it is. I was listening to NPR this morning on my way back, and they were recounting the video, and they said that the video appears to show a police officer pinning a 14-year-old girl on the ground and putting his. What do you mean it appears to show that? That's exactly what the hell it shows. I don't need all of this political correctness and the fear of getting sued and always saying allegedly and appears. No, that is exactly what the video shows. The police officer threw this young girl around like a rag doll because she talked back. She had not committed any crimes, and we know that because he released her. That is exactly what the video shows. The video shows that this police officer targeted. He went expressly for the black people. Witnesses, the guy who made the video, confirmed that. So all of this, what's the word I'm looking for? All this signifying, all this contortions to try to make this, to try to avoid calling it what it is. Our eyes saw it. And to add insult to injury, the real people who should have been arrested in this were those women who slapped and fought 14 and 15-year-old girls. But the police didn't come for them. The police came for the girls who got slapped, and came for every black person, and they guised it in the word of juvenile. That's what they did. All right, I'm going to back off of this for a minute for a couple of reasons. I'm going to back off of it because I get too emotionally committed when it's not just the race issue, guys. It's not just the race issue. It is the hypocrisy. It is the level of hypocrisy that is evident all throughout America. And people are like, anything they can do to not see the obvious, they will do. Anything they can do to back away from having to admit that there is systemic racism, and that racism is not just the N-word. Racism is not just lynching people. Racism is not just racially insensitive images. And that's not just racism. Racism is the fact that this, and actually, you know, I have to give credit where credit is due. I'm actually pulling from a tweet that I read yesterday by DeRay McKesson. Racism is this police officer drawing his gun on kids who are at a pool party. Racism is the fact that he came in simply, I have to hear the 911 call. I don't want to put words in this guy's mouth, but what in the world could this 911? This is how Tamir Rice got killed. This is exactly how Tamir Rice got killed, because people make these 911 calls because of their latent fear of blackness. And they made the 12-year-old turn out look to be a 20-year-old from what reports say. And then the police officers come charging in. We've got a black guy and he's got a gun, and don't take a moment's notice to see that this is actually a kid with a toy gun, and they kill him. This is exactly how John Crawford got killed. Somebody made an erroneous phone call, 911. There's a guy in Walmart with a gun, even though it is a right to carry state, right? It is a right to carry state. And they charge in, don't ask any questions, and they kill him. All right, I'm here with the comment here. It says that the father of the girl in the bikini, is calling for the McKinney PD to ask the specific cop to be fired. The police officer names the father names the police officer. I have to agree 100%. That police officer, based on his behavior and his unwillingness, there were two other cops. I have to go on tangents, guys. Just hang on, buckle up for the ride. My life is a tangent. And so I always break my sentences and go on tangents. There were two other cops who actually came to the scene and were somewhat reasonable. They were reasonable in that they had a discussion, right? Now, it was unreasonable in the sense that they were coming after the wrong people. The people that should have been arrested were those women who slapped the girl and created the entire confrontation. That's why this entire situation is unreasonable. But let's take it in context of an unreasonable situation. You had two police officers who were, for all intents and purposes, reasonable, and they engaged in a conversation with these young men to let them know, listen, you shouldn't have run. You made us, don't run when we come up. You're going to agitate, all this kind of stuff. And then they're ascertaining, trying to find out what the situation was about, right? Then you have this moronic cop come in to that same scene, that same footage, and jerk those guys and throw them on the ground as if talking to them is unreasonable. The only rational interaction that he could have with these juveniles is to toss them on the ground, force them on the ground. And to make matters worse, and I'm going to do my best. I am going to get to that segment on Uganda because it is very important. But to make matters worse, this is probably, for all intents and purposes, the first encounter that these kids will have with the criminal justice system. This is going to leave a lasting image seared in their brains about their position in their community, not just their position with police officers, because that's tumultuous. That's tenuous is the word I'm looking for. That's tenuous at best, right? But in their own neighborhood, with their parents' own property. And if it wasn't their exact, I can't think of this girl's name, the girl who just gave the interview, her parents, they lived in that neighborhood. And then she invited friends over. And all of this ensued. This is going to leave a lasting image, an indelible image in their brains with regard to how they fit into their own community, where their parents work and their parents pay taxes and where they go to school. That should make every one of us give this a second look and be disappointed with America. It's disgusting. It is unreasonable. It is unacceptable. And yes, that police officer absolutely should be fired without question. Without question. And then the only investigation that needs to take place is, why did the police department of McKinney, Texas, wait until social media blew up to do something about it? All right, folks, I'm going to take a second break. And when I come back, I'm going to cut over to the Uganda conversation and what's happening in Long Beach, California. This is the Benjamin Dixon Show, folks. Buckle up. We'll be back after this.
Hey, if you're like me, you're probably hearing the news that the economy is getting better, right? But there's one problem. You still don't have a job. Get back into the game with Chance.com, the state-of-the-art online employment connection for the new generation. Get access to millions of jobs on Chance that are actually hiring now. Stop searching for outdated job postings. Log on to Chance.com, create a profile, and then be found. Make the connection you need to get hired today. If you're serious about your career, you've got to check this out. Chance.com. Get that job. Make that chance with chance.com. JANZZ.com.
The traditional light bulb, a groundbreaking invention in 1879. It's time we switch to longer-lasting Energy Star light bulbs. They're more efficient than the old bulbs, like a text message is more efficient than a carrier pigeon. And they cut down on our energy costs. Because in our own groundbreaking age, we deserve a light bulb that saves us some cash. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Energy and the Ad Council.
You feel petrified. You're struggling with your mortgage payments, not knowing what to do. You do nothing. But if you do something, you're far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making Home Affordable is a free government program. Call 888-995-HOPE to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about your options. Call 888-995-HOPE or visit makinghomeaffordable.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Treasury, HUD, and the Ad Council.
It's 6:42 p.m. Time for Steve Plato and his son Dylan to do the dishes. They talk about everything from the yuckiness of girls to the awesomeness of his soccer team. Sometimes they don't talk at all. Then, hey! The dreaded splash fight. It's Dad o'clock, and it's the best time of the day. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Benjamin Dixon Show. Buckle up for the ride. Give us a call, 857-600-0518.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Just a couple of other notes on what's happening in McKinney, Texas. So a lot of people saying that two important facts. The police officer has not been suspended unless in McKinney, Texas, when they say administrative leave, they mean suspension. But in most police departments that I know of, administrative leave is totally different than suspension. And the police chief in the interview in the press conference last night would not indicate whether it was paid administrative leave or whether it was unpaid administrative leave, which would definitely change the paradigm in terms of how we view what's actually happening in this investigation. So I think it's jumping. He has not been suspended. He's been placed on administrative leave. That's one. Then two, the kids that lived in the neighborhood, but they did not have, let me read this. They did not reserve the pool. Okay, so they live in a neighborhood. Now, listen, let me finish my sentence before I go on my tangent. Buckle up, folks. They lived in this, the girl in the video clearly lived in the neighborhood. They did not reserve the pool. Someone else had reserved the pool for a pool party. And the kids, probably not having all the information in the world, right? Just go to the pool because that's just what kids do on the weekend. Now, this has turned into an international incident. What happens in neighborhoods probably every single summer, there are always going to be people who run into other people at a facility that's been reserved. And okay, well, you know what, we either make room for you or you have to wait your turn, whatever the case may be. But it's not as though these kids were trespassing like everyone is trying to make it seem. They simply showed up to a pool in their community, brought some friends, and turns out that pool was being reserved. Fine. Okay, so the kids could, if the people didn't want them there and it had been reserved, fine, the kids could go home. However, that does not excuse two things. That does not excuse how these grown women, these adult women, harassed and assaulted these young girls. It's particularly this one girl. Does not excuse that. It does not excuse their language. It does not excuse them putting them down with racial slurs. It does not excuse any of that. And it most of all does not excuse this super trooper hocked up on caffeine, fake military dropout, running onto the scene and making the situation worse. It does not excuse it on any level. But everyone's like, oh God, here, black cat, so look at the language that's always attached to black kids, man. It's like I feel bad for black kids specifically. I know I'm black, right? I clearly know I'm black, but I'm talking about kids that they live in a world where they really cannot afford to make a single mistake, because someone is going to call the police and someone's going to call 911, and in their hyperbolic way, they're going to escalate the situation. They're going to say, oh, God, we have a bunch of black kids here who are they're in a fight and they're assaulting this woman. And then the super troopers come in. They're going to say there's somebody in Walmart with a gun, and he's just pointing it at people, when in actuality he wasn't. And this guy gets killed, John Crawford. They're going to say, oh, God, there's a 20-year-old in the park and he's got a gun. And then the police roll up and 2 seconds later shoot the kid. And then the city of Cleveland considers whether or not they want to press charges on Tamir Rice for, I forgot what the exact charge was. I feel bad for these kids because they cannot make a mistake and not be labeled as a menace and a threat to society. That is what I feel the worst about. That is what makes me depressed about this entire situation. That is what really ticks me off about this, is because these kids in any other scenario, in any other skin pigmentation, they would not have had the police. They would not have been treated like animals. They would not have been treated as if they don't live in the neighborhood. They would not have been talked to, go back to your Section 8 home. They would not have been talked to in that way. They would not have been slapped. Well, maybe they've been slapped because, you know, sorry, white people, but y'all just like slapping people. I mean, and you know, and I think y'all spit in people's faces too. I know that was pretty much stereotyping, but it's just, so what? I mean, I honestly think those crazy white women would have slapped a white girl in the same incident, but she would not have said, go back to your Section 8 housing. Right. That's the difference. That shows you the mindset, that shows you the mentality, and that shows you the level of disrespect that they had towards these kids. And that's how this entire scenario escalated. And the most disturbing thing about it, and I'm filibustering a little bit, I'm waiting to hear back from my producer on something very important. The most disturbing thing is the fact that this entire incident would have been swept under the rug. And that lets you know that this happens around. I was talking to Dr. Boyce Watkins last night. He says for every incident that we see, multiply it by 1,000, because there are that many that we do not see, that there are that many incidents where a person does not have their camera out. This is not anything new in America. And I know a lot of people are like, well, why is it escalating so much now? It's not escalating. We just have social media. We just have cameras on our phones. We can, matter of fact, they make it so easy now. You don't even have to log into your phone. You just flip the switch and you can start recording, at least on the iPhone. I don't know what kind of phone you have, but it's not escalating. It is just being revealed the level to which African Americans and people of color, not just black people, Hispanic people, and God knows Arabs have been and Muslims have been treated this way since 9/11. It shows you the level to which the police across the United States have been hyper militarized and have lost their mind. I was doing an article last week about there was a study that shows well, not a study. I don't want to put. It's not a study. It was just an observation by a police researcher that says that out of the 100% of police officers in a precinct, you have 15%, hands down. This is a police researcher who worked with the police. 15% will always do the wrong thing. They will always violate the citizens' rights. They will always do something that is questionable, if not illegal. Then you have 15% that will always do the correct thing. No matter what situation they're in, they're going to play it by the book. And then that remaining 70% that's in the middle, they can vacillate back and forth between whether or not they're going to do the right thing or they're going to do the wrong thing based on who they have been partnered with. And so you have, and then the last most important thing about that article that I was taking care of was the fact that the police officers who will always do the wrong thing have a disproportionate amount of influence across the entire culture of that police precinct. In other words, the bad guys in the police department set the culture. And we see this on this video. The numbers were a little different. You had 1/3 of the people on the scene was the crazy cop. And then you have the other two who were reasonable, not doing anything to stop the crazy cop. The only thing they did do was push his hand down when he pulled his gun, which was, you know what? I have to thank them for that, and I have to applaud them for that. They at least, at a bare minimum, they realized this cat has lost his mind. He drew his gun, and they pushed his hand down, and he put the gun back. But they did nothing to stop him. And that's because police culture, I was listening to local NPR this morning in Boston. Police culture is a lot like gang culture. The entire don't turn on your boy, on your boys. That is quite frankly, that is not only gang culture, that is police culture. Don't snitch. Don't turn in somebody. That is not just gang culture, that is police culture. What are we to do when we are being policed? What are we to do when we are being policed by people who have a gang mentality? That's quite frankly what we're dealing with. We are dealing with a policing structure where 15% of them, at a minimum, have a gang mentality, and they have a disproportionate influence across the board of the entire precinct. And you wonder now, and here's the other reality. Here's the other reality. I think I'm gonna do an hour and a half today, folks, because I definitely want to get to this other story. But I just have to deal with McKinney, and then we're going to deal with the story out of Uganda, which is an international story, and it's breaking news here on the Benjamin Dixon Show that you won't hear anywhere else. Investigative reporting done by a correspondent. But here's the most disturbing. One of the most disturbing things about this. About this reality is that it will not remain disproportionate only to people of color. Police violence and police brutality may begin and may be disproportionately felt by people of color, but it will absolutely spread to every community, regardless of your color. There were, I believe in 2013 or at the end of 2014, there were 3 young white girls, one Hispanic, half white, that were killed by the police, unarmed. There's a video going around of another young man, a white guy, who was unarmed, killed by the police. This hyper-militarization of our police and their affinity for violence, they're trained to be violent, and I guess once their adrenaline gets pumping, they don't know how to filter and be rational and aggressive. You know, it takes a special officer to be able to manage his adrenaline flow as well as be objective and protect and serve instead of just turning into an animal. But when you put these people in these scenarios, they are not just going to assault Black people. So when we are calling foul, when we're saying Black Lives Matter, when we're putting emphasis on the fact that we are disproportionately affected by it, this is actually going to help white America. There's nothing positive that can come out of this that would not also be positive for the broader American society. If we fix it in the Black community, it's going to be fixed, and those fixes are going to reverberate throughout the entire nation. It is impossible for us to fix police brutality in the Black community and it not have a positive effect. What do you think they're going to do? If they're not violent in the Black community, you think they're going to go to the white community and start being violent now? They just have to be violent somewhere? No, we change the culture, we change the code, we change our expectations, and we change what we demand from the police departments in every single community, especially the marginalized communities. And we will see the positive effects. Those ramifications will be felt throughout the broader American society. But if we don't do that, then the ensuing police state that a lot of libertarians talk about, you know, you have a lot of people who say, oh, the police state is coming. The police state is coming. It's beginning. It has already begun in the Black community. If you want to stop it in the Black community first. But no, people always say, people are like, oh, you know, you're playing the race card. Oh, guy, it's always about race. Well, hell, yeah. Did you see the video? Did you see the fact that he didn't touch anyone except people of color? So yes, this is about race, but it won't always remain about race. And what will happen, I guarantee you, is that the effects will spill over. And then once they start killing and they start abusing white kids, and they already do, right? But they don't do it on a percentage wise. They don't do it on a scale that we see in the Black community. But once that percentage increases and they begin to be hyper aggressive towards police officers, to white communities, then people will realize and say, oh, well, maybe there was something to all the things that Black people were saying. And what I'm telling you is, let's not wait until that point. Let's not wait until that point. All right, folks, I'm going to do something different today. I have 10 minutes left, but what I want to do is I'm going to cut the show portion 1. I'm going to cut it here, and then I'm going to go into segment 2. And I want those of you who are here, I want you to stay on board, and I want you to listen in, and I want you to be a part of it. But I want to give some special attention to this next story because it is very important that we realize that an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, if I can be so coy as to quote Dr. King in this, because what we see happening in the Black community, we also see happening in other communities. We see discrimination, we see harassment, we see assault, and we see the political hand of a lot of conservatives getting involved and making the situation worse, not just in America, but internationally. So I'm going to do a switch. I'm going to play my exit music for segment 1, and then we're going to come back and we're going to deal with, and I'm going to go to commercial break. When we come back, we're going to do an extra 30 minutes, and we're going to deal with refugees from Uganda who have been forced to leave their country and come to the United States because of legislation in the Uganda that pretty much says that they can be killed. And I don't want to misquote, but and I think they've backed off. Let me not put words in their mouth. They've backed off of the execution portion, but they have been, for all intents and purposes, they've had to flee because of their sexual orientation. All right, folks, this is the Benjamin Dixon Show, and we'll be back after this break.
And until that moment comes, when we, the Americans, are able to accept the fact that on that continent we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other, that I am not a ward of America. I am one of the people who built the country. Until this moment.
That we are brothers. It's not a question of Jews or Christians or Muslims. We're all in the same boat.
Which we need each other.
Love is a condition so powerful. It may be that which holds the stars in the firmament.
Until this moment.
Love.
Until this moment.
Love.
Until this moment.
I come to you today to say that we can build a newer and better nation. I say we can do so, that we must do so, and that we will do so.
You've tuned in to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at www.thebenjamindixonshow.com.
And folks who are here on YouTube with us, give me about 30 seconds to do this transition, and we're going to move to part 2 of the show.
Here we go. It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is
not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time.
I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Did you think no one was watching?
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Your mission.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
To reclaim the American dream.
To be given the rights of human beings. To be afforded equal rights and equal opportunities.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show. If you're hearing his voice, you're hearing the voice of reason.
You certainly come to the right place.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a special episode of the Benjamin Dixon Show. This is Monday, June 8th, 2015, and I am joining you from the city of Boston, where the weather is finally beautiful. So many things happening in the news. As a matter of fact, so much happening in the news, I have to go into the second hour, which is great. I actually, I like doing more than 1 hour. But I want to deal with something that's breaking on an international level. Right here in, when I say right here, now I'm speaking of the United States, but in Long Beach, California, there are now 5 LGBT refugees from Uganda. And the entire segment, I'm just going to let the segment play and let you hear for yourself. It was done by a correspondent, one of my producers, actually, Adriana Langston out of Long Beach, California. Beautifully done. And I want you to hear her words and let her put it in context. I don't want to load it up too much because it speaks for itself. But my interest in this story, beyond the human rights issue and the fact that these people have been taken away from their home or have had to leave their home, my interest in this is how they got to this point in Uganda, and why it is that legislation that at one point could have led to the death, to the execution of people because of their sexual orientation, became law. And the hand that evangelicals, Christians in the United States had a role in that. When you say, what would Jesus do, evangelicals, I doubt very highly that he's going to kill someone because of their sexual orientation. You can't really find too many verses in the Bible that say that. Matter of fact, the one time we see him dealing with the sexuality of a person, and I'm good. Yeah, I'm sorry. I do know I know the Bible, probably better than a lot of evangelicals. But the woman that was caught in adultery, he pretty much said to everyone who wanted to kill her, whoever has never sinned, cast the first stone. So, the fact that Christians in America have played a role in the lives of Ugandans being threatened is an international situation that is very significant and sad. And the fact that they even call themselves Christians. But I digress, because I don't want to get too, I don't want to put too many words into the mouth. So I'm going to play, this is a segment that was prepared by my producer, Adriana Langston, and I want you to hear, for yourself. So let's take a look at this. And this is the refugees that are now living in the United States from Uganda, by virtue of the hand of a piece of legislation that evangelicals here in the United States had a role in. So let's take a listen.
These are just some of the festive sounds heard at the Long Beach Gay Pride Parade in early May 2015. But there were 5 attendees marching in the parade who had never heard these sounds before. They were more used to hearing rallies like this.
It's because of the way somebody is brought up. That's why I said I'm not going to sign the bill, because I am convinced with the available information that these people are not born like that. They just learn, and they can unlearn what they have learned.
We all agree that promotion of homosexuality is wrong. We all agree that recruitment of our children into this terrible behavior is flat out wrong.
That was the President of Uganda and the Prime Minister of Uganda at a 2014 rally in support of a piece of Ugandan legislation that would have made promotion of homosexuality a crime punishable by time in prison with the death penalty for repeat offenders. Evangelical Christian missionaries from the United States played a role in bringing the law to the Ugandan legislative body. The law, in its harshest form, was deemed unconstitutional on a technicality by the Ugandan courts. But the climate the evangelical groups helped to create made Uganda an African nation so prosperous and peaceful that many white South Africans have moved there, such an inhospitable and dangerous place that many LGBT Ugandans had to flee on pain of death or imprisonment. Their stories can be quite harrowing, even when read as anonymized profiles by Kelly Godger, the Deputy Director in the Office of Admissions at the State Department's Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration, also known as PRM, in Washington.
But the first we'll call Pamela. She's a 24-year-old Ugandan female. Growing up, she lived with her parents and siblings in Uganda. She and her girlfriend were suspended from school for a time when a love letter between the two of them was discovered. And then when her father learned of the reason, Pamela was told not to return home from boarding school because he didn't want her teaching her siblings about lesbianism. Later in life, she was fired on the spot from a job after her manager discovered that she was a lesbian. She was living with her girlfriend in another town in Uganda when they became victims of a violent homophobic attack. They fled to Kenya in late 2013. Like most refugees, they were sent up to Kakuma refugee camp, where things didn't go so well. After receiving threats in the camp from refugees of other nationalities when they became aware that they were lesbians, Pamela and her girlfriend moved back to Nairobi, and they were resettled together to the United States in early 2015.
In April, 5 Ugandan LGBT refugees arrived in Long Beach, California, a city of 400,000 in the South Bay of Los Angeles County that, in 2014, elected an openly gay mayor. Though Long Beach has the largest gay population in the United States after San Francisco, the 5 Ugandans did not set out to come to Long Beach. As Glenn Peterson, the CEO of World Relief, the volunteer agency in Garden Grove, California, working with the State Department to place the refugees, explains, it is rarely a refugee's intention to abandon their home country at all.
It's interesting as we listen to the stories of a lot of refugees who end up in a second country, they often when they first arrive there, their first thought is, we're going to go back home pretty soon. You know, things are going to settle down there. We're going to wait it out here and we want to go back home. They're not thinking about going to Sweden or Finland or Germany or England or the United States. They're thinking, we want to go back home. That's, you know, we have friends there. We have, you know, things have got to settle down. Then it turns out, you know, there's just not, it's not going to happen. Things aren't getting better there. They're getting worse, you know, in any of these countries. And then they think, well, we've started to settle here. We started to form a life. Maybe we could stay in this new country, in Kenya or Jordan. But the reality is there's so many people there that that's not going to happen either. They realize living in a camp isn't going to work. There's no way to get legal status in that country. So then they start looking beyond to a third country for a durable solution. And that's when the UNHCR and the US State Department and others start figuring out, you know, where can we send these various kinds of people, you know, from wherever they are, whatever their reasons are, as long as they qualify under the Refugee Act to become refugees, they start looking for places in the US or other countries for them to go.
Looking for a place for them to go is no easy task. Refugee candidates come to the PRM's attention as referrals from the UN High Council on Refugees. Fewer than 1% of those referrals qualify to be placed in the United States. The candidates wait in refugee camps for 24 months through the approval process. Then the State Department volunteer agencies, such as World Relief, search to find an appropriate region for the refugees to be placed.
You know, all over Southern California, we've got friends who've done this for years, and I've been learning about, you know, more stories from all of them. When we realized that some of the folks that were coming just recently were LGBT, we did have some friends in Long Beach, and we were aware of the community in Long Beach. So we started that conversation with churches and friends that we already had there, and we realized that some of the people that we knew already were welcoming and affirming. I mean, you don't always have that conversation with people until there's a reason to have a conversation about it. And then they introduced us to some more people and some more churches. And Long Beach is a really exciting area for me because the energy around helping the new refugees has been great.
The very first hurdle for LGBT refugees is having the courage to speak up. Kelly Godger from PRM explains how the State Department tries to make that easier.
Sure, and this is an issue that the United States government has been working on over the last couple of years, making sure that both our offices, our resettlement support centers, and the UNHCR offices that refer cases to the U.S. Resettlement Program are sensitive in terms of dealing with LGBT refugees. Many of these offices, if you walk into them, you will find, posters on the wall with rainbows on them, saying this is a safe space. If you're LGBT or if you have other issues you'd like to talk to us about, they will be treated confidentially and without judgment. Now, the challenge is that some people don't believe that. And as you say, perhaps a gay Syrian refugee who is sitting in front of a Jordanian caseworker in Amman may not feel comfortable revealing their LGBT status. Many LGBT individuals don't feel comfortable revealing their status until way after they've gotten to the United States. They won't even reveal it to their resettlement agency when they arrive. So different people feel comfortable providing that information at different phases. For this group of LGBT Ugandans in Kenya, they did feel very comfortable and are very open with their LGBT status, both when they were talking to UNHCR in Kenya and when they spoke to our resettlement support center staff in Kenya.
While the Long Beach resettled LGBT Ugandans felt comfortable revealing their status as part of the refugee candidate process and felt comfortable marching in the Long Beach Gay Pride Parade, they did not feel comfortable talking to me for this audio piece. Instead, I spoke to two congregants at St. Luke's Episcopal Church in downtown Long Beach, Tom Crow and Amy Valenzuela Meyer. St. Luke's was the lead gay-friendly church to which World Relief reached out when looking to place the Ugandans in Long Beach.
All right, folks, we'll be back. We're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about the second half of this and their transition to the United States. But important story, and we want you to be a part of it. The Benjamin Dixon Show. We'll be right back after this.
When you're ready to lose weight, why count, track, and worry over every meal? Jenny Craig makes it simple. Just walk into a neighborhood Jenny Craig center or give us a call. You'll meet your dedicated personal consultant who helps you reach your goals. Together, you'll pick out delicious Jenny Craig foods that you'll love and design a menu that fits your life. And the best part is that you can get started losing weight right away. Don't wait any longer to take advantage of our best offer ever. Call 1-800-JENNY20 or visit jennycraig.com.
This is the sound of salmonella gyrating on your undercooked chicken. And it looks like Mom might be taking it out a little early. Don't let salmonella get funky with your chicken. On average, 1 in 6 Americans will get a foodborne illness this year. So use a thermometer to cook each type of meat to the right temperature. Keep your family safe at foodsafety.gov. Brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
On the next episode of Recipes for Disaster.
I'm making beef sliders for my friend Sandy. Nana taught me to always pull meat off the grill early so it's extra juicy.
Use a food thermometer to ensure ground beef is 160 degrees, or you could make people really sick. Sandy didn't think twice about the slider she ate until yoga class, when a nasty case of food poisoning turned her downward-facing dog into upward-moving lunch. Watch Recipes for Disaster at foodsafety.gov and learn the steps Maria unwittingly leaves out. Brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer.
I want to be football. I want to be a bike that races around the country.
I want to be a bench on a forest trail.
When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. Brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Benjamin Dixon Show. If you're hearing his voice, you're hearing the voice of reason.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Okay, so we're discussing refugees who are Ugandan refugees who are now residing in Long Beach, California, who have had to flee their country, not because of war. Right. Generally, when you hear of refugees, they leave, like the Syrian refugees. They leave on account of war. But in many cases, these particular these particular refugees that we're talking about, they've fled for their life because of the threat to their lives because of their sexuality, and the fact that good old Christian evangelicals here in the United States had a role to play in it. That adds a certain angle on the story that makes it scary, because a lot of times the international stage is the place where people experiment with legislation. And they experiment with policies. And so that shows you the mindset of some of these Christian evangelicals who've put their entire stock of Christendom in opposing just even the existence of, I mean, that's not just gay rights and gay marriage, but just the pure existence of gay and lesbian people and transgender and bisexual people. All right, I want to play part 2 of this segment, this piece put together by our producer, and we'll come back right after this.
Tom has 2 of the Ugandan lesbians living with him, and Amy is acting as a guide for all of them. Amy explains their reticence to be recorded.
Okay, you spoke about fear, and can you explain for our listeners the reason why I'm talking to you and not them, and exactly why they were reticent?
Yes, as far as I understand, the threat is very real, very imminent, very present in Uganda right now. Even though the Kill the Gays law was struck down, and some of the U.S. evangelicals who had an influence on the creation of that law have since at least sort of publicly recanted and withdrawn their support of such things, there's still a lot of momentum that's been created. And so there's new legislation being introduced all the time. And whether it passes or not, it has created an incredibly dangerous climate for LGBT people throughout the country of Uganda, and really in many African countries. When these people were realized that it had become too dangerous for them and their families, they fled, and then had to deal also with threat of violence where they were seeking help until they were able to come to the United States. And being here and being potentially thrust into the public eye still presents a danger for them. I mean, we are ever present with social media, and it's quite easy to be linked to any kind of activity where if you are, I think, proclaiming yourself to be an LGBT, you would still be persecuted. And if not you, if you're not there, then potentially your family as well.
Physical violence to themselves, their partners, and their family members are just one aspect of the trauma through which Ugandan refugees are working with the assistance of World Relief and their church hosts. Tom, Amy, and other supportive congregants from St. Luke's and other Long Beach open and affirming churches offer spiritual support and a welcoming community. World Relief offers services paid for by money from the federal government in the form of refugee cash aid, which is payments to the state of California to reimburse for welfare programs to which the Ugandans are obligated to sign up, and grants that allow World Relief to offer other program assistance.
So our program includes the resettlement and placement program. It includes 90 days worth of services to the refugees. It includes, transportation from the airport, health screening, application for a social security number and card, application for social services, which includes food stamps and cash aid. So, that first week is pretty intensive with appointments, going here, going there. We need to make sure that their housing is appropriate and safe. We do a home inspection the day after they arrive. We do ongoing case management with them. Most refugees within the first week, they've done a lot of the stuff. Some are still struggling. We don't want anybody to languish for lack of knowledge of where to go. A lot of refugees need to get enrolled in English as a second language, ESL classes. And so a lot of that is in the first 30 days. At 30 days, we take a look at our list of required services. kind of check off everything and make sure that things are going well. Employment is a big deal. So most refugees are not employed within 30 days, but at 90 days, then we re-evaluate each refugee's situation and circumstances. And by 90 days, a lot of them have made huge progress. Some of them have started their first job, not all, but some. And some of them, who've gotten into English classes are very excited about that. So anyway, the resettlement and placement program is a 90-day program. And we have a set of services that I just described to you that we make sure that we provide. The Preferred Communities program that assists victims of trauma is a 1-year program. So in that program, we keep in touch with people for 1 year to evaluate their progress based on the trauma that they may have experienced previously, make sure that they're getting services there. So we have a 90-day program and then a 1-year program for the refugees.
While overcoming trauma is part of the Ugandans' adjustment process, it does not keep them from having hopes and aspirations for their life in their new country. When asked what their dreams were, Tom Crow gave a litany.
Oh, everything from going to seminary and becoming a minister to working in one of them has a certificate from the U.S. government in Iraq, where she was a security guard. She has that U.S. certificate. Others are looking at the different jobs, but really just wanting to settle down, have their own place, have some money, some independence.
Another part of the adjustment process is learning how the ideal of the United States being the home of the free stacks up against the actual reality.
I had a long talk with them, to be honest, about what it means to be black in America. And I warned them. And they were like, well, no, this is America. The police will be okay with us and blah, 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 because they weren't carrying their identification cards with them. And I said, you really need to do that in the U.S. I'm not trying to scare you, but first of all, you have a greater chance of being stopped by the police because you're black. First of all. Second of all, you're going to open your mouth and they're going to say, what's that accent? And if you don't have any paperwork, you could be taken down to the police station and held by ICE until you can prove who you are and that you're illegally here. So we talked, so we had that long talk, and they are fascinated by African-American culture, but they don't quite understand it.
But the biggest adjustment, as Amy Valenzuela-Meyer explains, may be getting accustomed to good old rugged American independence.
I mean, these are very young people, and their lives have been completely disrupted by having to flee, and for years prior to that, having to hide who they were. And so I think learning to have agency and being able to really make decisions among the many options that you have is kind of new for people. Although they were very successful people back in their home cities, they were often having to make choices to do things out of fear or fear for themselves or their families. And so having the ability to make decisions based on other things, I think it's a big adjustment and one that will take some time.
Just as the adjustments are many, so are the needs. The Ugandans came here from a refugee camp with very few possessions or material resources. Again, Tom Crow.
Well, we have some big needs and some little needs. I think a big need right now is for housing. Someone who has a little room in their heart and a little room in their home, who could take in one or two of the refugees to help, and offer some hopefully free rent for a few months so they can get a job, save up some money, get their first and last month's rent, and become independent. So that's one big need. Little needs are socialization. I maybe have one view of American society, which is sometimes a little radical, but I want, they want to meet other people, to know about other Americans and other views, and to be socialized, and to, see what it's like to be, living in the United States.
Tom and Amy say their co-congregants are happy to give, but it's not like they're not getting anything back.
I'm a very privileged person, and I am not a vulnerable person. But if I felt attacked and unsafe and retreated because of Prop 8, then I think that now here's an opportunity for me to do something that's positive and empowered, and it's time for me to do it. I don't want another minute to pass by where people who are claiming to be Christians can be so devastating and so hateful and cause so much damage around the world. And if me, a Christian, stays silent about it, then I'm just as much to blame. I think that it's great to just show this new group of people who we are and what it means to be an American, and what it means for our particular brand of being an American, and that they can shape that for themselves, and they have every choice available to them to create the kind of life they want. But in the meantime, they're going to be welcomed in proper style, and however people want to express that, I think it's a wonderful thing.
This is Adriana Langston in Long Beach, California for The Benjamin Dixon Show. If your heart was touched by this story, please visit thebenjamindixonshow.com for links to websites with information on how you can support the LGBT Ugandan new arrivals to the United States.
I want to thank Adriana Langston for that wonderful segment and the investigative reporting that she did. I think it's very important for it's important for a lot of reasons. And I felt compelled, sometimes when the news breaks, you push a story. But I felt the need to put this story out today. Just because of the significance of the similarities. These people, these refugees, the similarities between different issues that are in the news, these refugees are quite literally just fighting for the chance to exist, to be free, to be who they are. And I think on some level, not on some level, on every level, that's what all of us really just want, the freedom to be able to exist without fear of your identity risking, causing your life to be at risk, causing your freedoms to be at risk. You can't walk down the street, you can't. There's a video of a transgendered guy. I'm sorry. Let me say correctly. A transgendered woman walking down the streets. And I don't remember what city it was, but she was tall, had on heels, and had on a dress. And the crowds started gathering around her and just mocking her. And everyone was laughing, everyone was hee-heeing, everyone was participating, up until the point that someone came up and knocked her down and punched her. Then everyone decided to get involved and be like, oh, this is bad. Well, you didn't say anything. You participated in the harassment. You participated in the negativity. You participated in everything up to the point where physical harm came to this person. You're just as responsible. And all that person really was looking for was trying to walk down the damn street. A lot of people get troubled when I make parallels between the LGBT fight and the fight for Black Lives Matter. But when you realize that just want to walk down the street without getting harassed, we just want to walk down the street without getting profiled. We just want to walk down the street without our identity causing us grief. We just want to exist without someone making a judgment on us simply because they think they know who we are and they think they know what we're about. And the most disgusting thing about all of this for me personally, this doesn't have to be disgusting for you, but what's disgusting about McKinney, Texas, what's disgusting about what's happening to these LGBT Ugandan refugees is the hand that Christian evangelicals have in it. The people who call themselves Christians, who are supposed to be loving, who are supposed to be taking care of the least of these, the people who are supposed to look out for the oppressed. But we find out that they're not looking out for the oppressed. They have become the oppressor. And we see it all of the time, not just recently, but throughout American history. And that is absolutely why I could not hold this story. And that's why I will speak out against. Listen, I'm going to get out of here because we're already a half hour over. But this is why I will always make this declaration. racism is sexism. It is homophobia. It is Islamophobia. It is all of those isms and phobias extend from the same evil, bitter, hateful, fearful root. And if we sit idly by while someone is the victim of sexism, then they're only the perpetrator is only one sneeze away from being racist. Matter of fact, they'll do it in conjunction. We see it with the Serena Williams win this weekend. They're not just sexist, they're also racist. And so if we're silent over sexism, if we're silent over racism, if we're silent with regards to homophobia, then it will come to hit us where it hurts the most. In other words, if we are going to fight this monster, we have to fight it on all cylinders. You cannot stand out against racism if you're not going to say anything about sexism. You cannot stand out against sexism if you're not going to stand out against homophobia. You cannot do it. You might try to do it, but you are in yourself be part of the problem. And if you don't see the connectivity between the people who are the police, who have lost their minds and are killing, or we're just now seeing the fact that they have been doing black people like this forever. If you don't see the connection between the same bigotry that justifies it and continues it and exasperates it, and you don't see the connection between that and the same bigotry that treats women as second-class citizens in a lot of cases, particularly with regard to income, and definitely with regard to LGBT rights, with regard to their simply existing. If you don't see that connection, then you're missing the undercurrent of all of this. And the undercurrent of all of these evils is a mindset of preserving America to be something that it never really was in the first place. But they want to preserve the status quo. They want to conserve the status quo, and they don't want anything in America that does not match up to their ideology. And that, my friends, is why it's important for us to speak out against bigotry in every single form that it comes in. That's all I've got for you today, folks. This is Benjamin Dixon with the Benjamin Dixon Show. If you want more resources with regards, if you want to be able to contribute and participate and help the refugees that are now in the United States, I want you to go to my show. The page is not up, but by the time the show ends, I will have the page up, and you can click on some links and go through and participate in it, and do some good. Do some good. Also, get involved with what's going on in McKinney. Do some good. Speak out. If you see racism, if you see sexism, if you see someone being homophobic, if you see an injustice anywhere, speak out and help out. All right, folks, I'll see you on Wednesday. Same bat time, same bat channel.
And until that moment comes, when we, the Americans, are able to accept the fact that on that continent we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other, that I am not a ward of America. I am one of the people who built the country. Until this moment.
And we are brothers. It's not a question of Jews or Christians or Muslims. We're all in the same boat.
We need each other.
Love is a condition so powerful. It may be that which holds the stars in the firmament.
Until this moment.
Love.
Until this moment.
Love.
Until this moment.
I come to you today to say that we can build a newer and better nation. I say we can do so, that we must do so, and that we will do so.
You've tuned in to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at www.thebenjamindixonshow.com.